Well, hello. Yeah, once again, I could sit and listen to good banjo music for hours. But it's not about that here at Grove of the Celtic Shaman. And yes, I chose a little bit of different background, something a little more soothing like a waterfall. I love waterfalls. So I dropped that in here. And I've learned and am learning more about OBS software where you can import and loop videos. Kind of cool. Makes up for some interesting backgrounds. You'll notice I did change a bit of the opening. On our left monitor over here, we have the last of the public Grove of the Celtic Shaman altars. That was the last altar we had in '08 before Circle got destroyed. But hey, life changes and we move on. So I did have a little bit of a change of venue this morning as I posted earlier. This morning we're going to talk about where the GCS came from, why it was developed to begin with, why Celtic Shaman. What the hell is Celtic Shaman? So we're going to talk about that today. We may go the full hour, we may go not, we may go over just a bit. I do have a couple of relatively decent pages that, yeah, absolutely love bluegrass. I do have a couple of pages, web pages, that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. And of course, as always, I will post the links to those pages in the group chat here for those of you that want to take a look at it. Now, for those of you that watch our archives over on YouTube, there's quite a few of you. If you want these links to these pages, you can always slide over to Facebook, come to Live with the Shaman, and pull those links off of this page. Also, at the top of each of our broadcasts here on Facebook Live and on the YouTube, you'll notice I copy and paste the link to whatever music we're playing. I like to give the developers of these YouTube pages a bit of a thumbs up for their hard work. Also, you may notice I have a link there that says if you've missed any broadcast, that's the link to the archives over on YouTube. Below that, I have a link that says, are you on Flickr? Well, if you're not on Flickr, it's flickr.com. You have to have a YouTube account. You have to have a Yahoo account. If you are on Flickr, check it out. Post your things like what brought you to paganism. Post your things like any questions that you may have. Flickr has a very large pagan presence. It has a very large pagan community on it. And I like to be able to reach out and, get a hold to those people that may be looking for something. So, well, that's coffee empty. Swapping over to Dr. Pepper. Would love to know the drumming music you have. YouTube, Celtic drumming. Ta-da! I go to YouTube. I type in Celtic pagan drumming or pagan drumming, and I see what playlists come up. That simple. Not rocket science. So without further ado, let's get on with it. We're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about why the Celtic Shaman Grove was developed to begin with. Much like Open Pagan Church. Open Pagan Church was developed for those that really didn't feel they fit in anywhere. They knew they were pagan. They knew they wanted to learn more about paganism. And they knew that they had no place to go because most of your groups were Wiccan, witchcraft, druids, such as that. In 2000, there just really, in the year 2000, there just really weren't a whole lot of internet pagan groups. There really wasn't a whole lot of open circles where somebody could just come and enjoy a pagan discussion. That was the purpose for OPC, what was known then as the House of Pagans. Open Pagan Church was developed digitally so that we could do this, live broadcast on Open Pagan Church. Well, the GCS, the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, was also developed in 99-2000. It had spent some years prior to that me developing a solitaire tradition, a solitaire following of what I then called Scottish shamanism. I'd been to Scotland quite a few times. I had studied a lot of the Pictish ways. In fact, I'll show you in just a moment the very first pagan book I ever read. Boy, that was some time ago. It was a paperback. It was a small book. It was really interesting. But we developed the Grove of the Celtic Shaman for a place for shamans who lived the shaman lifestyle, who had no guidance because they may not necessarily be Native American. They may not necessarily be Siberian. They may not even be Tibetan. But they wanted something that best fit their thought processes and the way they practice. I know I did. I know that in the 90s, when I started investigating paganism, I wanted to find out what the hell I was. I had talked to multiple people that I was talking to in BBSs back then, back in the old days of the black screen with the green writing, BBSs. And the several people that I was talking to back then, or should I say typing to, my question was, how do I find out what my path is in paganism? And that was where I learned how to voice my belief systems. I learned how to voice what I found was my life as a pagan and my path. Now, I've had a number of people come through and try to stir crap, if you will, telling us we're not real. Sabrina, I'll get with you later. Tell us we're not real. Tell us we don't exist. Okay, that's your opinion. You can have it. Opinions are like buttholes. Most of them stink, and I'm sure yours does too. I do have and always will disagreed with Christian pagan. By definition, well, that's just by definition can't happen. Celtic shamanism is not necessarily new. It's a relatively new term by the overall scheme of things, if you will. And I did actually find a web page that does talk a little bit about that. And reading on that earlier this morning, it's actually a web page that didn't set off my bullshit meter. But essentially the idea of Celtic shamanism, the basis of it, one, your shaman. Shaman is a way of life. It is a thought process. It is something that you are. It's not something you become. It is something that you can manifest to become over years. But at the core, it's who you are. It's what you are. Shamanism is a lifestyle. We don't necessarily cast spells. We don't bring the group together that cast magic against someone else. If you want to get down to semantics, I guess you could say we do, because we do periodically call the shamans together to raise energy for someone who needs healing or help. I know a number of other groups out there that do the same. But I don't go to my altar to cast a spell. I don't write down spells. Nothing against them, but I don't have a book of shadows or a grimoire. Shamans live with the mother. We understand that without Mother Earth and Father Sky, or Mother Earth, Father Sun, Sister Moon, that we have nothing. We are nothing. Why the Grove? Because it gave a people that wanted to understand shamanism a place to learn openly. I know that every student that I have had personally that's come into the Grove, I have allowed them the openness to study and realize and experience the Celtic shaman path on their terms. When they call a circle within the Celtic shaman tradition. When they practice on their altars, I have seen many altars in my grove with bits and pieces of Native American, bits and pieces of Tibetan, bits and pieces of Scottish, Irish, or other Celtic artisan, if you will. I've seen many of the students come through that take their time to do what they need to do. In talking about the why, in my interpretation, there was a need for it at the time, and there's still a need for it today. The Grove of the Celtic Shaman was and is designed for those people to come and learn a philosophy, an ideology, and a way of life. May fit you, it may not. If it doesn't, blessed be on your way. If it doesn't, you want to stick around and learn, have at it. Why the Grove was founded, like I explained to you, we were founded to give these people a place to learn and experience energy, healing, and how to find their own magic, if you will, and their own gifts. Every shaman that has come through this grove since 2000 has had their own magical healing gift that they use in the community to help others. For myself, I use aura healing. I use crystals of all types and stones of all types. I use different forms of tantric healing, and I use different forms of meditative healing. Now, each member of this grove that has gone through the ranks and gone through the training and has come up, they each have their own art of healing. Each shaman that comes through learns in their own time and their own way. If whether they choose myself or any one of the other ranking members in the GCS, each one of them will learn what their gift is for healing. When they come through and they learn that, then their teacher will work with them on organizing that philosophy. Let's see. So essentially, the reason for forming the Grove was to give shamans a place to be, whether you're Native American, Siberian, Celtic, whatever. Those who go through the first year and make it to the priesthood, many, learn that this isn't for them. A select few, and I don't make that selection. You do, the student. You decide what's right for you. Not my job to tell you what's right for you. I may say, are you sure that this is right for you? I've had those that after about 3 months of training, they seem to be becoming more confused than they are enlightened. Those I will recommend, are you sure this is right for you? I don't want you to leave here more confused than you were when you started. That's not my goal. I've had some people accuse me of having a God complex. No. I am a disciplinarian. I do believe your oath is your word, and your word is your honor. And I do my best to live by that. And I expect every other oathed member of this tradition to do the same. Am I the end all be all in this grove? Absolutely not. Come the day I die, I have enough masters in this grove to carry it on. What they do with it is up to them. I won't care. But for now, as founding member of the Grove, I listen very closely to the first years and the other leaders of the Grove and their opinions and what they think need to be done. So again, like I say, the Grove of the Celtic Shaman was an actual idea that formed over many years of process back in the 90s. What you see now in 2019 is still a growing, manifesting process of what the Grove and the Celtic Shaman is, was, and will be. So some of the things I wanted to introduce you to was, one, the very first book I ever read on paganism, not talking about web pages and going to Scotland to see for myself and meditating and learning while there. The very first book that I found rather intriguing, over here on my left monitor, was called Scottish Witchcraft. Oh, I know, I'm shaman. Witchcraft is not for me, but Scottish Witchcraft, the History of Magic of the Pects. Now, like I promised, I will copy and paste that in the chat, so that if anybody wants to read it or check it out, you are more than welcome to do so. But that was the first pagan book I ever read. And I thought it was rather interesting. Some of the pages in it and some of the descriptions and the ideologies kind of sort of hit home. They gave me an idea of where a lot of my core belief systems come from, and that is the ancient Pictish, what was also known in many areas of Scotland as Pectawitton, came from that era when the Pects, prior to becoming Christian infused. Now everybody talks about the Celts, saying that the Celts were the first people. They are incorrect. In fact, if you do your research and your history, the Pictish people were the people that beat the Romans at their own game. If you research Hadrian's Wall at the border between England and Scotland, that wall was written to battle back the ancient Picts. The Pictish people were the people that battled in the nude painted blue. That was not the Celts. It's real easy to research and debunk that the people that fought in the nude painted blue were not the Celts. They were the Pictish people. All of my research on that was done in Scotland. So, I don't know everything about it. I would have loved to, instead of just the 3 months I lived in Scotland, I would love to have stayed over there and become a religious study of that history for several years. In fact, were it left up to me, I'd still be living there. But there you go. So that's Scottish Witchcraft. That was the first book I ever read on paganism. Now, another page that I want to share with you, weirdly enough, is found on a Druidic page that I Googled this morning. It's like the first line says, it's kind of become popular over the years, and various authors and what have you. There really are a boatload of books out there over the last 10 years of shamanism, Celtic shamanism, as it were. It's kind of really become, I hate to call it a fad. We're anything but a fad, if you will. But Celtic shamanism has quickly become a way of life for many. And then angelfire.com, I have always really respected angelfire.com and their documentation, their documentary, if you will. They really research what it is they're writing. And I've always kind of liked this right here. Shamanism is a servant of the sacred rather than its rather than its priest. So essentially, what that means is, and one of the things I've always talked about shamanism more being a way of life than it is um, a path, is we're more in tuned with the sacred. We like to think ourselves more in tuned with, in the GCS, what we call the triad, the Great Spirit, and the God and Goddess. Some have thought us to be a monotheistic belief system. Thereby, I've been told I can't be pagan because Celtic shamanism supposedly is a monotheistic belief system because we hold Great Spirit above all. Well, the problem with that theology, if they read our tradition, which is open for perusal, is we follow the aspects of Great Spirit, thereby forming the triad, Great Spirit, God and Goddess, or Great Spirit, Goddess, and God, as I've been going through with the training for the last several weeks. So the purpose for this, and it has manifested itself through the years as I hope it will continue to manifest on a good side, even when I step down as founding member of the GCS, is that this will carry on the teachings of the Grove as a whole. It's not about me. My teachings started it, but I have grown. I've manifested, if you will. Um, I've grown in my belief and my understanding of what it is we're about. There is no one singular definition for the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. One of my students, I must admit, brought a tear to my eye when I read her presentation after she came over, and she hasn't actually dedicated yet, but she's now known as an apprentice master. After 14 years of working her ass off in the Grove, she has reached apprentice master. Now, what does that mean? You can read the tradition if you want. I'm not going to get into all of that here. But she wrote a couple of paragraphs on what she thought about what the apprentice master means to her. And I must admit, when I read it last night, it brought a bit of a tear because I was very proud of what she has become. I can't take all of the credit for that. A lot of the credit for that comes from her life trials, the other leaders of the Grove that have worked with her, as well as myself, and her tenacity to keep on fighting. I have a first year that was nominated as a priestess last night. Not yet dedicated, but I am very proud of where she has come and how far she has come over the last, I think, over a year. Or is it 2 already? I think it's been over a year. But she was nominated last night as a priestess of the Grove. I am absolutely proud of where she has come. We had another member last night nominated as a apprentice master. She has, bless her heart, busted her tail over the last 14, 15 years in this Grove to learn. So those who have made the grade, those who just pop in to the Open GCS on Facebook and notice that there's not a whole lot of rolling post going on. We don't talk drama, we don't talk crap, we don't talk about crap. On the Open GCS and here on the Grove of the Celtic Shaman and Live with the Shaman, we don't deal with drama. We don't deal with backstabbing, and we are fiercely protective of our members. Understanding what shamanism is, the base core of shamanism is understanding and living with the divine without need for ceremony, and, love this, without need for ritual. The core of the shaman, I am because I am. People ask me, why do you do what you do? Well, I love it. I love learning. I love watching students learn. And damned if I don't love learning with my students. Every one of our students that have passed through this grove over the last 20 years has taught me something. Like Lucy said, we're family. We protect and defend each other. Now, I will tell you, and I'll be the first one to admit, I have made some mistakes growing in my path, as everyone does. The important thing, and the thing to remember that I have always taught my students, own it. Own it. When you make a mistake, step up and say, hey, I screwed up. Any recommendations on how to fix it? More importantly, is it even fixable? As shaman, we seek the truth. Boy, therein lies a whole variable of debates. What is the truth? First years in the GCS learn that there are three sides to every coin. I've always taught my students that every coin has three sides: heads, tails, and the rim. 90% of the time, that little tiny thin rim around that coin is the actual truth. Heads will be my interpretation of the truth. Tails will be someone else's interpretation of the truth. What is the truth? Well, the only people that truly know the truth are those that were there. And even those that were there are going to interpret and perceive things differently. I spend the first good 3 months of every student with the books that I give them to read, which is covered in the earlier training, teaching them that through these books you can understand how to interpret the truth for you. At the end of the day, what comes down to is, what is shamanism to you? We have a base that says, okay, by what you've told me and by the things you believe and where you want to go, okay, I agree. I think shamanism might be something good for you to seek out. Seekers that come to me that ask the questions, I will help them find their way. If I don't think shamanism is right for you, just like every other teacher within this group will tell you, are you sure this is where you want to be? So, I think I've got both of my masters in here, and I know at least one of the master apprentices is in here. I don't know if the other one made it or not. But you can ask them. We're not going to give you the color of the wall. I might tell you my interpretation of what color that wall is. But folks, you have to understand, I spent a lot of years welding. In case you don't know, welding is sticking two pieces of metal together. And welding, no matter how good a helmet you have, does cause some forms of colored blindness. So there are some color variables I have trouble with. My interpretation of a color may be like way off. So if I tell you a wall is light red, the damn thing may be pink. So most of the time I'll go with your interpretation. But the reason this whole thing was brought together in 99 and 2000 was for this reason right here. To give people a place to learn what shamanism is. The different forms of shamanism. I know that, as I talked about in earlier training, my first years are required to look up and research as many possible forms of shamanism as they can. Hey, she says, I'm here. Yep, both of our apprentice masters are here. So I challenge any of our watchers, those people that watch our pre-recorded broadcast and those maybe watching live. It says here we have 5 live watchers. Well, that doesn't count whoever may be watching on the background or the autoplay pages. But I challenge you to ask respectfully, these people who have come up through the ranks, these people who for more than 10 years have worked their ass off to get where they are. Now here's a couple of base core basics. And boy, have I gotten fussed at for this. But it's a part of the Grove. Sink or swim. We're going to help you learn how to swim. And then we're going to toss your ass in the deep end of the pool and see if you make it. Now, granted, if you start to sink, one of us is going to dive in and hopefully try to save your butt. But, like last night, we had 3 people make rank. None of these 3 people knew it was coming. Myself, the other masters of the Grove, we came together and discussed these 3 people. The trials they had been through, the grades that they had made, the research they had done, and where they were at in here from our interpretation. And we decided, as the leaders of the Grove, to bring these people up. Bring them up to their next rank so they can continue on with their next stage of learning. Not a single one of them knew it was coming. We like surprises. Of course, unfortunately, we don't have a fire. We don't have a physical circle anymore in which to call a student to the south side of circle. Those who have experienced that can tell you it is mind numbing. Clint says, yes, we all need a place to talk, learn, be together Lucy, a lesson everyone has to learn, the big head syndrome. Now, let me tell you, several years ago, I did get a case of the big head syndrome. And the master with me at the time, and the high priest and high priestess of the time, had absolutely wonderful fun out of popping my bubble. They explained to me just what I was doing. They were right. I backed up, I regrouped, and I come at it again. But yes, when we were in circle, and it was a Celtic shaman circle. Now, if someone else was calling circle, we would discuss with the caller of the circle prior in protocol to say, hey, I've got some Grove business I need to discuss with my people. Would you mind at some point relinquishing circle to me, stroke us, so that we could call that business? And we're very big in protocol here in the GCS. We teach a lot of protocol in circle, respect. We teach how not to do things as well as how to do things. But I have been known, yes, I miss crossing the fire too. I miss doing fire dances too. Although nowadays with my knees, I would probably end up in the damn thing. We call to order the Grove. And we would ask that all oath members to the Grove and their students arise. And they would stand, if they could. We had some with physical ailments that couldn't. We've had some with broken legs that got up on crutches anyway and they stood, came to center. But it was then and it is now. The intentions of the leaders of this grove, we do not warn someone prior to their dedication to the next rank. Here's why. Number one, it's your choice whether or not you accept that dedication to the next rank, either standing in circle or in the Facebook group chat, where we have developed a chat for the leaders of the grove that would be priest and above. So for example, if I have a new priest or priestess come to the circle or be nominated to come across as a priest or priestess, you have to accept that appointment. Because even though you've been nominated, you're not a priest or priestess until you accept verbally or in writing, if we're over the internet. If you accept in writing the responsibilities and the understanding of the training of the priesthood, more power to you. And if you're crazy enough to understanding and accepting the responsibilities of an apprentice master, good on you. And the same goes with the high priest. The same goes with any member ranking in the grove. So the whole purpose behind this is not for any of us to control anyone. It's not for any of us to have dominion over anyone when it comes to those of us in the GCS. We're not above anyone else. Yes, I have been known to put people on restrictions because of their actions or lack of action, if you will. I've been known to put people on 30 days of restrictions. I have asked that their counsel let them stand on their own. I've asked that their spirit guides let them stand on their own. If you take me or any one of the leaders of the GCS as your teacher, you relinquish that right for us to be able to say, nope. If you're not going to do the studies, you're not going to do the work, and you're not going to make the grade, you're not going to get the perks and the benefits that go along with being a member of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. I'm not going to pretend to sit here and tell you what that means to the members who have gone through it. I can tell you what it means to me, but you're not going to believe me because I'm the founder of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. But you can believe the ones that have lived through it, the ones that have been there, done that, gone through the training. It's really hard, and we're 45 minutes past the hour, and I want to spend a few minutes closing the conversation, and I want to appreciate those of you that were here and those of you that watch our pre-recorded program. But I want to talk to those of you that are remote students, those who live out of state, some of you that may be thinking about doing remote training. It is hard to train someone remotely, and it is mind-numbingly hard to be a remote student. I will tell you this. In the 10 years that I have been doing remote training, I've almost stopped doing it multiple times. In the 10 years of doing remote training, I have had one student out of many that made it to the nomination for priesthood. One. Remote learning is a bitch. It's not easy. There are things that you have to do that require you to take pictures or videos of. I, as your teacher, have to see these things. You have to pick up a phone and call me monthly. You call me. Your responsibility. I'm not going to chase you. And I'm not going to expect you to chase me. That's the reason I tell all of my students, we will schedule a time to talk. Just like Sabrina asked me earlier. We need to schedule some time to talk. She was nominated last night as an apprentice master. Bless her heart. We've got to have that conversation. We'll set the time. I have a nomination for a priestess. We will talk one day next week. She's very busy. I get it. We're all busy. Life gets in the way. But I wanted to do this broadcast today and kind of break up the mind-numbing training we've been going through for the last several weeks. Because we're fixing to break into the priesthood training, and really, there's a whole lot of redo, go back, relearn, revisit, research, research, research. And for you remote students, there's going to be video training, there's going to be video conferencing, There's going to be pictures that I'm going to need and that other teachers may need of things that you have done. It's not that we don't trust you, it's that we need to know what we need to know. So, folks, that's kind of it for what the GCS was founded on, what it was built upon, what it is, where it came from, and what it means. So I would hope that if you may have missed something or you think you misheard something in this broadcast, I would appreciate it if you would go back, rewatch it, and ask your questions. I hope that you enjoy your upcoming new week. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for being a part of and watching and sharing in the Grove of the Celtic Shaman here on Live with the Shaman. Have a great day.